Hello again. Today we're going to be playing 1862 War in Virginia by Worthington Publishing. So we're ready to kick off. Let's pull our first card. Check out the overview for the setup. But just in brief, we've got two Confederate reserves. We've got the Union forces at Fort Monroe down here, surrounded by the Confederates in the peninsula on the James. We've got the Union in Overland, Fredericksburg, with the Union at Manassas and the Confederates at Fredericksburg. Just over at Harper's Ferry, we've got the Union forces on the Valley, and we've got the Confederates at Winchester. So I pulled the first card. We've got Charles Fremont. So in this case, I'm going to read the description on each card. So the Pathfinder was a famous explorer that carried a great political clout. He was the first Republican candidate for president, but his military abilities when handling on an army were lacking and caused Union setbacks. So, checking the political pressure track. So we've got a 15. It's quite a good start actually, because that's going to do is force McClellan to leave the peninsula before his campaigns even got started and go to the army that's closest to Washington. So the army closest to Washington is the Overland Army. So McClellan's shifted straight away to there. So that's a good start for us because it's pulled the Peninsular Army's got 4 strength, and that's a difficult one back to beat. Does mean the Overland route becomes a bit tougher though. So what we're looking at next, all Confederate attacks on the Union Valley Army apply a +1 DRM. So we've got an extra boost in the Valley. Good to keep in mind. And then the Union advances on the James. So I'm going to roll a d6 now for the James. In this case, it's one of the rare cases that you have to actually roll under the Union strength, which is 3. If I roll 3 or less, that means that the James Army can advance, and that's because of the Merrimack, the ironclad steamship, is blocking up the James River for us. So I'm going to roll that now. Rolled a 3, so the Merrimack's not done his job, and I retreat along the James. Okay, Confederate attacks then. So we're going to make the most out of the Fremont situation. So we're going to roll over on the Valley. So normally I'd need a 3 in the Valley, which is pretty good generally, but I actually only need a 2 now because of the +1 DRM. So I'm going to just roll that now. So we've got a 5, and that means we win. So we push the Union back to Rockville. I'm going to roll again. 2. So this case, the DRM has allowed me to push the Valley forces back into Washington. Okay, brilliant. So that's been a decent first turn. I'll put the pressures on the Union. So I'll discard that card there, and we'll move on to drawing the next. Something to forget, and I always forget this. We need to check the political pressure. So 5, 8, 12, 16. So the pressure's even higher. We've pushed the Union, and Lincoln is definitely going to be wanting to defend Washington at all costs. Okay, so we're drawing a new card now. Probably less good. Joseph E. Johnston. Johnston, not Johnson. Joe Johnston rarely attacked, but was masterful at strategic withdrawal. So Johnston was in command before Lee. So this is a nice canonical card draw. So we're checking the political pressure track. Interesting. So McClellan is now having to deal with the fact that the Valley force is closer. So McClellan's actually going to shift the Overland onto the Valley now. So that's actually works quite nicely for us. Okay, so let us... Confederates retreat 1 Confederate army of their choice. Okay, interesting. You know what, I'm actually going to retreat on the James because I actually quite like, this is my strategy of essentially bringing that pressure onto the Confederates a little bit on these tracks, which means if we do start losing elsewhere, we might get to the point where the pressure on the Confederates allows us to move Lee onto the board. It's a bit of a risk, but the good thing is that the James is actually quite easily to push back on. So I've swapped the wrong token, there we go. James is quite easy to push back on, so it will be relatively straightforward to take back the James River, if we get pushed back. It's much easier than the peninsula. Okay, so the Union advances the Union army furthest from Richmond, ties player choice. So the Union army furthest from Richmond is the valley, I believe. So that's a 5. We've also got, yeah, so the James is now 4. So the Union army pushes the valley back. So McClellan's joined the Union army at Washington and he's marched out and pushed Jackson's Valley army back. Okay, Confederate attack 0. Johnston is cautious. He doesn't want to risk any more Confederate losses. So that's my turn there. So we're checking political pressure again. 4, 7, 11, 14. So we're dropping down, but that's okay. Okay, drawing a new card. What do we got? Chickahominy. Confederates may choose to attack the Union Overland Army. If so, roll a dice and apply results. So let's read the description on this one first. Union, Overland and Peninsula armies around Richmond had the Chickahominy River between them. The Confederates would strip their forces from one side of the river to beef up their attacks on Union forces on the other side of the river. River is very important in the American Civil War. So let's roll a dice. You know what? I think it's worth it. Either way, movement might get more pressure on me. I might get more pressure on the Union. So I'm going to roll it. Rolled a 2. I'm going to retreat the Confederate army. So, okay, it's not great, but it actually does push that pressure towards the Confederate side, which actually, in the longer run, might be useful. As long as it's balanced, that's the key thing. You don't want it all on one front. So, Union advances in the valley. Okay, so we're getting pushed back again in the valley. Now, that's a little bit risky because we don't want the valley to become too exposed, because a lot of good cards work on the valley and being above Winchester. So if Jackson gets pushed back, he doesn't get the resources from the rich Shenandoah Valley, and that's going to play havoc for us later. So I'm going to take that opportunity then to attack in the valley. So we've got a strength of 3 now. McClellan's with them at Harper's Ferry. So I'm going to need a 4. So I'm going to roll a 3, not very good. And I'm going to actually start using my dice shaker now, because my dice results, I always feel a little bit, I've got a pretty poor dice throwing hand. So I'm going to try again. So this is our second attack in the valley, another 3. So Jackson is having trouble. Maybe his supply lines have been cut by McClellan's daring advance out of Washington, which is a little bit out of character. Okay, let's try again. 1. Well, this is not going very well. So none of our 3 Confederate attacks have succeeded. And we will check the political pressure now. So we've got a 3, 4, 5, 9, 12. Okay, so we're actually out of Washington pressure now, and we're just into the neutral space. So there's advantages and disadvantages to that, as you'll soon see. So we're drawing up for the next turn. Rappahannock. Okay, if the Union Overland Army is north of Fredericksburg, well, they're not. Okay, let's read the description. The Rappahannock River was a barrier and key defensive position midway between Washington and Richmond. Numerous battles were fought around this river during the war. So famously kind of Fredericksburg, but we're not above Fredericksburg because the Union has pushed us back. So we don't get to roll on that. So the Union advances the peninsula and the valley. So they're pushing us back there and they're pushing us back here. Okay. And then we've got 2 attacks. Okay, so that would push us down to 9, I think, on the political, 10 on the political pressure. I still think we want to be above on the valley, so I'm going to use my 2 attacks to try and push on the valley again. I don't think Richmond is enough under threat yet to try any other routes. We don't need to desperately defend Richmond yet. I'm going to use a 5 and push them back. Cool. So that's pushed us up 1, and then we're going to try a second attack. Come on, get a roll on the dice cup, and we've rolled another 5. There we go. So McClellan has pulled back, probably concerned about his supplies, and has pulled back towards Washington. So let's check the political pressure again. We're at 4, 6, 9, 12. So we're actually on the same. Okay. Harper's Ferry. Now this is what I was talking about. This is why it's important to be above Harper's Ferry. The Confederate Valley Army, so we'll read, I need to get that right, reading this description. Harper's Ferry, site of John Brown's raid. One of the kind of key triggers of the Civil War was John Brown's raid of an abolitionist, basically an abolitionist extremist who killed some slaveholders on the Missouri border. Really interesting bit of history if you want to look into that. Was a key location in Virginia during the Civil War. Its occupation changed sides many times. So you hear a lot about Harper's Ferry as a kind of backdoor to Washington in the Civil War. So if the Confederate Valley Army is occupying north of Harper's Ferry, retreat the Union Army. Union Army goes into Washington, D.C., and the Valley Army comes behind. Nice. Okay, Union advances on the James. So let's see if the Merrimack can keep that gunboat diplomacy going. It does. So we've not rolled under the Union Army of the James. So in this case, you're rolling under and equal to. So the gunboat basically stops to the James Army advancing. And then we've got the Confederate attack. Where shall we go? You know what? I might just try and take the pressure. Tell you what, let's try in the peninsula. I always think just keeping the Peninsula Army slightly back is always a good idea. So a 3. We don't. The Peninsula Army is too strong. Too many forts to push back on. Yorktown, of course, being where the British surrendered in the American War of Independence. There's a lot of battles in this part of the world in the 18th and 19th century. Right, let's check the political pressure. So 2, 7, 10, 13. Okay, we're back on pressuring on to Washington. So we're doing quite well, but we haven't taken Washington because we can't. We need either Lee or Jackson to take Washington with the kind of the full victory. You can get a minor victory if we push the Americans, sorry, the Union back, but I just don't think. It just doesn't feel like a real victory to me. Only if we get desperate. The risk is because we remove 4 cards from the deck, I could maybe never pull Jackson, so that would mean the only way I can take Washington is to get Lee. So we might have to start retreating after a certain point. Okay, Lincoln springs a trap. If the Confederate Valley Army is north of Winchester, it is retreat it. So Lincoln was frustrated with the progress of his armies in and near the valley. He directly ordered the commanders to maneuver to trap Jackson with multiple forces, which almost succeeded. So McClellan, once again, sprung the trap on Jackson. And he's pulling back. And then the Union advances overland and in the valley. So we're pushing further back over Harper's Ferry. And in the overland area, we're pushing back. So Richmond is close to being threatened now. Confederate attacks. Let's keep the pressure up in the valley. It's always worth being above Harper's Ferry. So let's do an attack there. 4, 3. Yeah, we beat McClellan back. Okay, and we're going to try one more time in the valley. I'm not so worried about Richmond yet. It's a bit of a risk. 3, not enough. McClellan stops Jackson advancing further. Okay, so let's check the pressure again. 4, 5, 8, 11. Okay, not far off. Lee coming in. Keep that in mind. Second Bull Run. Confederates may choose to do this battle. If so, roll a die. Okay, so Manassas, Virginia, and Bull Run Creek was not a kind place to the Union armies. Beaten badly in 1861, and then again in 1862, it forced the recall of McClellan and much of his armies from the peninsula. Absolutely fascinating battle, both first and second Bull Run. I'd love to go there one day. It's a lifelong dream. So let's go to, you know what, let's risk the battle, because either way there's going to be movement. So we're going to roll, and we've rolled a 1. Retreat Confederate Overland Army. Oh dear, Richmond is under threat. That is a bit scary. Have I actually taken too big a risk here? I think I might have done. And why is that? Because now the Union is going to attack overland and into Richmond. So if they roll above a 3, so 4 to 6, they've won. And that was a little bit foolish on my side. That I should have not rolled that battle, because I've just risked Richmond. That was a little bit silly. Let's have a roll, see what happens. Come on, I really don't want to lose right now. Okay, do they roll a... Let's let the shaker decide. Ah, they've done it. Yeah, they've done it. Oh well. Okay, so Union Army has moved into Richmond and defeated me. That's a bit depressing. Yeah, so that was just silly, really. I should have looked at the card a bit more carefully, because there were essentially 2 opportunities, like a double hit there of retreating the Confederate army and then it running back. So I should have looked a bit further down. So I think, you know, if we're going to role play this, the Union forces, the Confederates tried to push back the Union as they advanced towards Richmond on the northern route. They tried a desperate counterattack and battle to try and exhaust them, but their morale broke and they fled back into Richmond, and Richmond was taken. So an early end to the Civil War there. Yeah, I'm a little bit tired today, so maybe that was like not the most thoughtful playthrough. So, oh well, next time. I have won this game a couple of times now, but the luck can go against you. But in this case, it wasn't luck; that was just foolishness on my part. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed it. It is a really fun game, this one, and I'd recommend, if you're interested in a bit of like overview, top level, quick and easy Civil War battle. Or strategy level, this is a great like introduction game to this period, and one of the most colourful parts of it in the East. So the Eastern Theatre of the Civil War. So thanks for listening, and like and subscribe.